It's 5 o'clock on January 23rd, 2023. The work session of the Goldsboro City Council is called to order. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Ham.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Polak.
Present.
Councilwoman Jones.
Present.
Councilman Broadway.
Here.
Councilwoman Matthews. Present. Councilman Gaylor.
Present.
Councilman Batts will not be here tonight. He's actually out of the country. On vacation. We're all here, we have a quorum, so we'll proceed with the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as printed or add items to the agenda?
Move to adopt. Second. Second.
Have a motion to adopt and second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. The agenda is adopted. At this time, we'll begin our old business, and we have a presentation by our Community Relations Director, Ms. Williams.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am here to present the home ARP allocation for non-congregate shelter and supportive services. The City Council has elected to utilize home ARP funds to provide non-congregate shelter and supportive services to assist individuals or households who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, or other vulnerable populations. At the December 19, 2022 City Council meeting, Washington Business Dynamics Consultants presented the community's current needs and gaps in services to the homeless populations. As a result, City Council elected to fund non-congregate shelter and supportive services. HUD requires the city to include how it intends to distribute home ARP funds in the home ARP allocation plan. The home ARP allocation plan, due to HUD by March 30th, 2023, must be submitted as a substantial amendment to the fiscal year 21 annual action plan for HUD review and acceptance. During the Commission on Community Relations and Development's January meeting, members discussed funding for the two eligible activities and have prepared an official recommendation to Council. So I have a short presentation I'll present, and then I will call up the Commission Chair, that recommendation, and then follow up. Conclude with a staff recommendation to Council. So the home ARP allocation plan, again, is due to HUD by March 30th, 2023. And the Washington Business Dynamics Consultants are currently awaiting Council's decision on how to allocate the funds for the chosen eligible activities, which are, again, non-congregate shelter and supportive services. And as you can see from the breakdown of the allocation, I've subtracted the 15% administrative costs 5% of that HUD released to the city last year, the $45,000, so that we can begin the planning. And then the remaining of the administration for the allotment is shown there. And so the remaining allocation to be allocated to the two eligible activities is $817,121.70. The home ARP plan must include a description of how the city tends to distribute home ARP funds, a description of how the funds will be used to address the needs of home ARP qualifying populations, and a description of the intended method for soliciting applications for funding and or selecting developers, service providers, subrecipients, and or contractors. Few facts about non-congregate shelter. A non-congregate shelter is defined as an emergency shelter that provides private sleeping space. Eligible activities include 1, acquisition, so the city can acquire a non-congregate shelter property. 2, rehabilitation, the city could rehabilitate an existing property for the use of non-congregate shelter. Or 3, newly construct a non-congregate shelter. There are restricted use periods that the city must enforce. For new construction, the city will have to enforce 15-year restricted use period. That means the facility would have to be used as a non-congregate shelter for that amount of time. For rehabilitation, 10 years, and acquisition, 10 years. Okay, this slide I'm going to skip. I learned about an hour ago that we don't have to go down this path of weeds just yet. Non-congregate shelter. The city must determine that acquisition development is financially feasible to include ongoing operating costs. So home ARP funds cannot cover ongoing costs. So the city's due diligence in the process is to review information from the owner or developer that demonstrates financial feasibility for the restricted use period. So we have to have documentation of that. Before committing funds, the city must determine whether the owner intends to continue operating the project as a non-congregate shelter, emergency shelter, grant shelter, or convert to permanent housing after the restricted use period met. And again, I will return soon with more details about kind of the ins and outs of the shelter. Supportive services is the other eligible activity that City Council has elected to allocate the funds towards. There are 3 eligible supportive services under home ARP. One is the McKinney-Vento supportive services, homelessness prevention services, and then housing counseling services. And just a little about McKinney-Vento. Prevention services include cost of child care. I won't read all of those. Food costs, assistance with legal services, life management skills, rental assistance, application fees, helping someone to establish permanent housing, helping with the security deposits, utility deposits, etc. And then housing counseling is another eligible activity under supportive services. Housing counseling must be provided by a HUD certified housing counseling organization. Under housing counseling as well, staff salaries and overhead costs of a HUD certified housing counseling agency can be covered, as well as intake, marketing, outreach, etc. Oversight and management. The city is responsible for day-to-day operation and management oversight of the home ARP funding and activities, oversight of eligible cost compliance, which ensures costs are necessary and reasonable. City is responsible for ensuring there is no duplication of services. And lastly, the city is responsible for termination of assistance when program requirements or conditions of occupancy are violated. Okay, and now I will call up Commission on Community Relations Chair, Mrs. Terry Bradley.
Good evening, Ms. Bradley.
Good evening. So our role in this was to discuss it at the commission. I'm waiting for the slides to come up, I guess.
Just push the button.
Oh,
Do it, then that's it.
The right one.
There you go.
here we are. All right, and so we essentially had a real colorful discussion for probably about 35, 40 minutes. And our city manager, assistant to city manager, and the mayor were there to answer all of our questions. It was a really great conversation. After gaining the understanding, the council had voted on non-congregate shelters and supportive services as defined in 24 CFR. On Tuesday, January 10th, the Commission and Community Relations and Development discussed in detail how to allocate percentage to these categories. And there were quite a few people there that had some insight on the homeless and had actually spent some time there and do community service with some different homeless categories. And so we got some great insight from them. And after that discussion, we decided that we agreed to do 60% 60-40 allocation to non-congregate shelter to supportive services. The tent city inhabitants, that was based on this conversation, the tent city inhabitants do not want to move. They're very comfortable where they are. However, they are in need of support services such as mental health, counseling, job services, substance abuse, and rehabilitation. One example of a high level of rehabilitation would be the substance abuse. There's a high opiate use across the nation, and that's like a 3-month initial care, and that's ongoing care, and it's not always successful the first time. So supportive services and non-congregate shelters are kind of 50-50, but we decided because the tent city did not want to move to non-congregate shelters that they would at least get some of the supportive services, so that was a priority there. Unsheltered homeless are spread to several areas of the city. The community is in need of non-congregate shelters, maximum of 6 months. Supportive services need range from mental health, counseling, to job track and or educational services and more. So that was it. We kind of like made an agreement and left the meeting in agreement with a clear understanding of where the funds should go. That was it. Thank you very much.
So, hold on, Ms. Bradley. Just for clarification, the discussion there in terms of allocation and the percentage and so forth is just a recommendation
Right.
To the council. It's not something you decided on. I mean, within your organization, you came up with those recommended percentages. But you're taking this to the council as a recommendation, correct?
Yes, and that's how I started.
Just
So,
to make
in
that clear
yeah.
to the council here.
Yeah, I started as an advisory, that we're here as an advisory, and that, but as a commission and a board, we have to vote
Yeah.
on that,
Sure.
you know, so yeah, so we just came to that agreement. Yeah, I respect that. We are just here as an advisory.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Anyone have any questions?
And I don't have any questions, but I don't want it, I want it to be very clear that not all tent city unhoused don't want to move, but the majority of them. So I want that clear. I don't want it out there that none of them want to live, and that out there, and I want that very clear. The majority of them choose to live where they are.
Thank you.
I
Anything?
have a question. For those, since we're talking about the ones in the tent city, from a support service standpoint, in reference to mitigating further injury, for example, public safety, where they go in those areas for calls, firefighters, police, what would support services contribute as far as, like, you know, say opioids, needle pricks, as far as safeguarding those areas? Because that's the biggest, I guess that would be the biggest injury or fault that would cause an individual to go in those environments and, you know, arbitrarily get pricked by a needle. I mean, those individuals that are there, they feel comfortable with that, but when you have an external agency
Sure.
coming inside, I'm trying to look at the mitigating factors, you know, of people that are trying to assist in the process. So is there
Right.
any breakdown?
So our responsibility was
Well-
just to see where the priority was going to be and how we were going to split the funding.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
details, part of the details and some of the explanation of those supported services were in Ms. Felicia's slide, and then they're going to take it from there to
Yes,
figure out how they're going to mitigate all that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I would like to speak to that. On several occasions, I have been part of a group that have used resources, and they have gone to Cherry Hospital to help them with opioids and to help them work through. And in lots of cases, I hate to say it, it's help for that 24 hours or that week, and then they're back. But I do want it understood that we do try to get them the resources that they need to help them.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
One of the things we went away with is what you're talking about is this is going to be a long-term, ongoing program. It's not something that can be solved in 1 year or with just this funding. And we're finding that collaborating and reaching out and speaking to these other organizations that do supportive services, having them come to our meetings, we'll have a better understanding altogether of what needs to be done. Is that it?
Anyone have any other questions?
If I may, just, so this is all private property that is owned by somebody who is not currently staying there. At some point, those landowners are probably going to say, it's time for everyone to leave. So providing support services, are we talking about trying to craft a way to provide support services to folks where they are, which has merit, obviously?
Sure.
Or are we looking at trying to craft support services once we get those that are interested in relocating to a more suitable facility? What would you suggest, or what is the commission suggesting?
So right now it's yes to both.
Sure, okay.
You kind of want to respect everybody and meet them where they are.
Right.
We don't really have a full answer to that, but we are in agreement that there's private property, and I think we had a fire not too long ago, and so we want to make sure that the city of Goldsboro looks respectful, and we continue to respect the homeless and work with the property owners, et cetera. So we don't have a solid answer for that, but we know that all those areas need to be addressed. So.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
And that is one of the reasons why we said 60-40.
Right.
Because there may be some that want to go. And when they do, we want to be able to, to have the funds to help them go. But most of them desire, and there are some people there that their parents want them home. And, I know them personally, some of them, and their parents want them home. They do not want to go home.
Right.
So those are some factors that we talked about when we chose the 40%.
And there's subsequent care. We haven't talked about that. 6 months is not enough to transition somebody and get them the care they need. So there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had. Okay? That
Any
it?
other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mayor, and Council for the questions. I will say, Council, Mayor Pro Tem Polak, that Wayne County government has received a lot of funding for the opioid crisis. And so I serve on some outside coalitions and groups that are actively working on how to address that issue in our local community. So that's a good thing. So I'm here to just, in conclusion, staff has recommended that City Council make the home ARP allocation decision at or before the February 6, 2023 City Council meeting in order to ensure timely submission of the home ARP allocation plan. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move into our new business now with the TC.
Hold on one second. The recommendation with the on or before, so are we as a council gonna talk about what that timeline looks like? Because the next meeting is the 6th, so I think we should at least spend just a second to figure out how we're gonna move forward in making a decision.
Okay. That's reasonable. Yeah.
I agree. And I'd just like to say one thing, and I've gotten some letters from people, and I think one of our first steps is going to be to have an advisory board of stakeholders who actually work with the homeless. Not, I'm talking about DHSS and all of that, and then prioritize where we put that money first. And I can think of one off the top of the head. We've got homeless women with children, then we've got the homeless, and you can go right down the line of what we're doing. But there are professionals out there that can provide an advisory board, and it can be formed fairly quickly. And that board can then serve as a foundation, because this is not a one-time shot, and we've got to have somebody to monitor what's going on. And at the same time, hopefully employ some grant writers to keep it going. That's my vision.
Yes, sir.
And 60 to 80, I'd rather see 80 for non-congregate, but I'm sure we're all going to talk about that. But we need stakeholders from mental health, DHSS, We need those people, Salvation Army, that are not only gonna help us, but also monitor what we're doing and continue it on. That's my 2 cents.
Yes, sir. So we just need to know how the allocation should go, what percentage. And then once we've decided that, then we will collectively work together as council and staff to determine how. That's when we go down and dig in those weeds with the supportive services and the non-congregate shelter and how it should work and who should be involved with that.
Okay, so just so we're clear for everybody listening, when we talk about the percentage, it's just saying how much of that money is gonna go towards what, not go towards who.
Right.
Okay.
HUD doesn't want to know anything about who
I just
in
want
that
that
plan.
to-
They just want
to
to
be
know
clear.
what we're putting it and how much.
Yeah.
We have to designate how much goes where.
Okay. I just wanted everybody to be clear that it's not necessarily the who, but more so of the what.
So your recommendation is 80% to,
That's just my personal
yeah,
thing.
I wanna make sure.
That, because I think that's where.
You're saying 80% to non-congregate?
I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
just saying, our problem right now are those people on, out in the woods. And those problems in the other places. We've got to find them a place to go. We've got women, homeless women with children. Those
Yes.
are the ones we've got to take care of first. And 80%, 75%, but that's where it's got to go. And I just think we're losing a lot of business. We're losing a lot of reputation of what's happening. I think personally, I think that's where we need to be at the 80. I appreciate 60 to 80. I wouldn't jump up and down, but I think the majority needs to go to that non-congregate living.
I think, I don't know if I'm leaning towards the 60-40 more, and it'd be nice for everybody to kind of give us a gauge. But one thing that I know in working with this population in my job is that we can house you, but you are gonna have to have those support services, so they go hand in hand.
They do.
So we have to consider that, and I guess that's where subject matter experts will come in, to say that's just as important, equally important. We can house you, but there's gotta be something more. So I
just wanted to clarify, as Felicia pointed out, that you can't use this funding for both in one facility.
Say
So in
what
other
now?
words, you couldn't give it to one nonprofit to do the non-congregate shelter and the operational support.
right, okay.
You can only do one or the other, so you gotta go with different organizations however you split that. Correct, Felicia?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, so when you read the slide, the way I interpret the slide that you presented,
Duplicate services is that if an organization has already served that particular person in the same manner. That's what duplication of services is, HUD's definition. But I will check to see if it means.
Can you go back to that slide?
Because all of the organizations that are currently up, they offer support services themselves. So that seems, I don't know.
Felicia, I would like some clarification on, it's like 2 slides now. It said that operating costs cannot be paid for with, ARP funds.
Am I going the wrong way?
And I'm curious.
which
what-
slide was that?
That one right there,
Yeah.
it's first bullet, bottom sentence that's underlined. What they're rolling into operating costs. I mean, I know the accounting definition, but I'm curious. I mean, is that just salaries, or are they basically implying that this needs to be capital expense only?
I think so.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I interpret it. I went through the HUD exchange in my mind, listed that seminar, it was just capital.
it
So
needs to be capital.
it's bricks and mortar, that's what you're talking about when you talk about non-congregate shelter, nothing
Mhm.
else.
That's what drives home funds is the brick and mortar, then
Gotcha.
CDBG is more hands-on with the people.
So, you want a decision from the council tonight on the percentages?
It would be nice if not by February 6th.
Yeah. So, we've had a recommendation from the Community Development Commission, Community Relations Commission, And we've had another recommendation by Councilman Broadway. Is there any more comment or discussion about percentages to either the non-congregate housing or the support services?
You said you want a decision tonight?
I mean, it would be nice. So the plan is due March 30th. So we're certainly not just going to take it out of the consultant's hands and submit it to HUD. We're not going to do that. So I would sit down with staff. We'll fine tune, make sure it meets what the regulations say and what HUD says before it's submitted. So just to have that time to allow for reviewing the plan and making sure everything's there as required before the city submits it would be nice.
I'm not sure what wraparound services can be provided that aren't operating costs.
Well, maybe what they really mean is the operating costs of that organization. I can't pay for their salaries. I can't pay for their administrative supplies. But I think the wraparound supportive services, perhaps the support services aspect can be. Does that make sense?
And if you know, that statement falls under the non-congregate shelter, so it's
Right.
for the operation of the shelter. I think it's our assistant city manager pointed out.
Forgive me for repeating this, but did Madam Chair say that in making their decision, they had the input of certain stakeholders, if you don't mind?
We had the stakeholders, we had,
Why don't you come on up
okay.
Thank you.
And everybody that's involved in the city is a stakeholder, so to speak, right?
Absolutely.
But, we did have the most important people that were very well versed in how the city operates and the history of the homeless, which was the mayor, city manager, and the assistant to city manager, who's very well versed in CDBG funding and such. So
and
well,
Ms. Jones as well.
the liaison's always there. She's always there and very helpful. She's part of that, so she's there all the time. Yeah. So we didn't have anybody else externally come in from supportive services. We did have people that are part of the commission that work with the homeless and work with nonprofit organizations, someone that works with the churches and such, and so they were very well versed on that and gave a lot of input as well as Ms. Hiawatha, as far as tent city, non-congregate shelters, etc. And this is not necessarily a lot of money. It's really hard to say where the percentages should go. You know, because even if you put 80 to non-congregate shelters, someone else brought up, they're only there 6 months, and then they have to go. You know, and so that's why somebody else brought up supportive services. I mean, at the end of the day, you can make an argument for both. And supportive services is going to help that person transfer but get on their feet. But again, that's not going to happen in 6 months or a year. People that's been homeless for years need a lot of counseling, a lot of medical attention, education, job assistance. So this is just the beginning, you know, and so a lot of conversations need to be had, and not, from my point of view, I'm just advising, you know, these are part of the conversations we've had, that we have a deadline, we have a ways to get there, there's no need to rush, you know, like Ms. Brandy said, conversations need to keep going, so. We did not have anybody there from the outside, it was somebody internal.
Yes.
The reason why we thought February 6th would be a good date is so we could give our consultants a couple weeks to put it together, and then we could give HUD a couple weeks to look at it, and if they didn't like what the consultants put together, we could come back to council and fix it before the actual deadline. So if you take longer than perhaps over the next couple of weeks and make a decision on February 6th, you could be impacting that timeline.
What does the council want?
You need a motion?
Well, I am going to support the commission's percentage, so.
I appreciate you.
You make a
motion. Mayor, I make a motion that we support non-congregate housing with 80% of the budget.
Motion is made for supporting the program with 80% going to non-congregate and 20% going to support services. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there a second?
What did you say? Okay.
80-20. That's the motion. I don't hear a second for the motion, so the motion dies.
So we have a 60-40 on the table from the commission, and we have an
I can
80
live with
from a council member. So could we meet in the middle? Can we do a 70-30? Can we, I mean, there's 3 other people who haven't said anything on the board, so what do y'all think? So we can provide our director with a response tonight, and we can move forward.
I could live with 7.
This is my concern about it. You may have, and I don't want to throw out any particular agency that's vying for this money, but you may have an organization out there that already has a sustainability model that they have within their organization that I don't want to pull any money from them. You know, if we do a blanket 60-40, but that yet one organization has the whole package figured out, how they're going to maintain their money and, you know, past the 6 months, I don't want to short them any money moving forward, if you can understand what I'm saying. So when we make this decision on, say, 60-40, 80-20, 70-30, is that not going to be what it is across the board for all of the applicants that are vying for the money, correct?
Did you say it wasn't specific to an agency though?
It's not, we can't take that approach, is what we learned.
Right.
So it's just what we're gonna put
What
toward
we're
that
gonna put,
activity. So
right.
we can't
Is
try
that,
to look out for,
is that,
anybody.
and that's what my, you know, reservations are about making that percentage decision, because you may have some applicants that within their model, they have the sustainability model that projects them 20 years down the road. And I don't want to take any dollars away from any organization that may have their whole, there may be some applicants that don't have any of those aspects, whereas others may. So I don't want to short them the money from, you know, an area of them saying, you know, hey, well, we're going to pay this percentage. And like Councilman Matthews said earlier, you know, some of them already have a plan, you know, and I don't want to short anybody any dollars for logistics or planning or anything. I want all the money to go toward the individuals that's going to impact, if you can understand what I'm saying. You know.
So what's your
But
recommendation
that's not the
though?
position that the council was in, so you're not in a position to shortchange anyone, even though I understand your point, but that's just not what the decision is, not based around agency or organization being shortchanged. It's
Right.
saying, again, this is how much needs to go towards this, and whoever's qualified is whoever's qualified once we carry out that request for proposal process.
I mean, I understand that, but if you give more money to one aspect of it
Right.
than the other, somebody is ultimately
Right, I understand
getting
that.
shortchanged.
Right.
Not an individual per se, but
Right.
we're putting more money into the logistics than the individuals that are being helped, I guess.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
the way Hudson says it.
Right,
has to
so that's
go.
what I'm saying, I don't wanna make that knee-jerk decision right now without knowing what all the organizations bring to the table, where they may have in their proposal a way to sustain their organization. I want to make sure that everybody gets, you know what I'm saying?
But
Well, since
my
we
only,
don't-
go ahead.
Good. Since we don't have to do, I mean, this is a good discussion, but since we don't have to do it tonight, I don't see where we have to just push ourselves.
Right.
It's a good discussion, and let us discuss it.
Someone brought up at the meeting respectfully that, you find a couple of model cities within the state, because HUD will provide those, where there were, case studies and programs put out there, how they were successful and the challenges they had. So if you can find a city that has similar demographics and see if they have a program that's similar to what you wanna do, and maybe talk to somebody how they split or how they're making things work, that's a suggestion. That was a suggestion that was on the floor, so.
So, Ms. Williams, I really want to honor your request in the council making a decision tonight. I think we owe it to you in the work that you have to do. So if we need to continue the discussion, let's get through it so we can provide our director with some directive.
Well, I move that we take these recommendation of the commission, 60-40.
We have a motion to accept the 60-40 recommendation from the commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor of the motion to allocate the monies on a 60-40 split for 60% for non-congregate housing and 40 for support services, signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
I would say that I want to amplify Councilman Broadway's comment about an advisory commission or committee or whatever you want to call it. I really have spoken about this numerous times, and I think that we have to be careful about just at the time that we allocate these funds, not just do so without there being some organization, be it some body of people with specialized backgrounds and so forth that can be sort of a watch service for us and for the program as well. So I hope we'll keep that in mind as we move forward on this. Okay, let's go to new business and the TC Coley update. Parks and Rec, Ms. Brown, Felicia Brown. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am here to update you regarding our TC Coley Community Center. And just to give everyone a quick background on it, back in 2016, the City Council at that time decided to renovate what is now the TC Coley Community Center. Renovations were actually completed in 2018 at a cost of approximately $210,000. Plans for a nonprofit to operate the facility did not materialize. So when that didn't happen, in February of 2019, City Council at that time directed Parks Recreation, my department, to operate the facility for 1 year, and during this time, nonprofits would be able to use the facility at no charge. In February of 2020, City Council directed a lease agreement be implemented with Ashford Boxing Club for the gymnasium and approved Parks Recreation to charge rental rates for the rest of the facility. So quick background on that. During that year where the facility was only available for nonprofits to use, we had very few nonprofits request and use the facility. We had way more, probably 4 or 5 times more people request to use the facility for a birthday party, anniversary dinner, and, you know, and they were willing to pay, but we couldn't because the council at that time said they just wanted it for nonprofits. So then in 2020, that's when we came back to council at that time, and you all said, okay, let's go with the rental rates and let anyone use it. So as far as Parks Recreation programming goes, and this is still a little bit more background information, back in September of 2022, so last year, Herman Park Center was closed due to positive mold test results. Parks Recreation staff, including myself, housed in Herman Park Center were relocated to what is now the Herman Park Admin Building, and it was formerly known as the Senior House, which was formerly known as the Administrative Building. So what was old is now new again. Programs that occurred at Herman Park Center and the Senior House were relocated to other facilities, including TC Coley Community Center. So for TC Coley Community Center, annual operating costs are estimated to be approximately $35,000, and we do expect this number to now increase with relocating programs due to Herman Park Center closing. Rental revenue for FY22 was $8,000, and again, we do expect this number to increase with Herman Park Center closing and us relocating programs there. City Council approved repairing the roof over the recreation room and interior painting at an estimated cost of approximately $55,000 during your November 21st, 2022 council meeting, and we are actually in the process of trying to get quotes for that. We've successfully gotten 2, and we're still working on getting 1 more so we can move forward with actually repairing the roof. And as far as TC Coley Community Center now, as I've been mentioning, we've been moving programs around. So the pottery program that used to be at Herman Park Center is now at TC Coley Community Center. They meet in the meeting room, we say at the back of the building, that back meeting room. We have senior programming that occurs there. For instance, card groups, they meet in the recreation room. We have special population activities that also occur in the recreation room. We, of course, have rentals that occur in the meeting room with the mirrors and the recreation room. We do not have rentals that occur in that back recreation room, because that is now the pottery space. And we are in the process of moving billiard tables and other leisure center items to the recreation room. So I keep referring to it as the recreation room because that is what we are in the process of converting it to. We're, making it back to a recreation room. And with Herman Park Center closing, the things that were in the leisure center at Herman Park Center, such as the billiard tables, that's what I mean by we're in the process of relocating them to that room. And then, of course, we will continue to add other programs, including summer camps. Oops. And with that, I open up for questions to see if any of you have questions.
You want to have questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
There used to be like a gym space in there. It was a really small room, but it was when you went down the hallway before you got to the room with the mirrors. Do we still have that space, or can we move some of that equipment maybe over there?
That, the gym space I think you're referring to is a really small room, and the gym equipment that is in there is no longer in there. And with the renovations that took place, it has now become a storage room.
Oh, okay.
So,
It was a very small room.
yes.
Okay.
So what's the state of the restrooms there?
The state of the restrooms, I mean, they're still,
Functional, but are they?
yeah, I mean, they
decently
work,
functional?
they're decent. When council back in 2016, decided to renovate the building, that was one of the things that was brought up. The restrooms specifically, when you first walk into the building to your left, I don't want to say they're the original restrooms, but they do need to be updated. So those restrooms, they still work, but they will need some upgrades. We do, of course, have our restrooms in the back. That's on the back hallway. And to me, I would say they are more ADA compliant than the ones when you first walk in.
Are there any plans to do anything to the park house in Herman Park?
That is up to council if that's something you all want us to do, because that is considered a capital improvement item. And when it comes budget time, that is something that has been put in our budget, but because of the estimated cost of it, that has been something that has been removed because of more pressing needs that we have.
Just to get you some more space.
So with TC Coley over the next year, is that gonna be your primary rec space?
No, W.A.
Well,
Foster Center.
outside of Foster?
Right. Mhm. Because, again, Herman Park Center is taken offline.
Right.
So that means the facilities we now have access to are W.A. Foster Center and TC Coley Community Center.
About how many staff do you think you're gonna have over at TC Coley regularly?
Well, I mean, we have staff there now, because remember, Herman Park Center is closed.
Right.
So the staff there at Herman Park Center, as far as the recreation staff and the part-time staff, they're over there. So we have at least 2 staff there a day.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, in the summertime, looking to add camps, that's part-time staff that'll be hired, so there'll be more staff over there during the day. But like I said, now that we're using it as another facility for us, whenever there's programming going on, we're over there. It's not like it was before when it was just a rental facility, because Ashford Boxing, they have their own keys to their part of the building, and we open the building up for rentals. Because we now have programs in there, we have staff there.
Thank you.
Ms. Felicia, does that facility have a generator?
No.
It does.
Is there, I know we've done some work on the HVAC system there. Do we have a standard service contract that they check it periodically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's heated and will be cooled
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
summer?
we already had it on an HVAC contract with the rest of our facilities. We actually just called the company to take Herman Park Center off of the contract, but to leave like the administrative building there. But TC Coley was already up there.
Okay.
So yes.
And the reason I asked about the generator, this might kind of be off the wall, but if that were to be deemed a shelter in the event of a flood or something and it had a generator, would it be eligible to more federal funds to help maybe rehab that building? You understand where I'm going with that?
Possibly. Historically, in the past, with the way that went when storms came,
Yes, ma'am.
it was more so the county reaching out to the city with other federal agencies such as FEMA and the Red Cross, and they were the ones that designated this is where the Red Cross is going to be set up, or this is what's going to be used as a shelter.
Yes, ma'am.
To kind of, I guess, go around the world with this. When we were in the process of finalizing the plans for the new Herman Park Center, that conversation also came up. And one of the things that came up with that was if we wanted one of the gyms at Herman Park Center to be considered a shelter space, like to get federal funding and be a shelter space, it had to be built differently, meaning it had to have like reinforced steel and things like that. So stating that, I know TC Coley doesn't have that, and if we wanted that to be for TC Coley, that would be going back and doing a much larger renovation project to get that in place.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Brown, you bring up a good point there, or subject that's, this was used by FEMA or the Red Cross during hurricanes. With the activities that has moved in there now, if we should have another hurricane and need space, is there any room there for that to be used?
I mean, when we get in those type of emergency situations, that's when we kind of pause our programming. You know, everyone remembers Hurricane Matthew. So when, for instance, when Hurricane Matthew hit, Herman Park Center became the operational hub for the American Red Cross. So when I say the operational hub, people think of the auditorium space, the gray room. They just weren't there. They were in the meeting rooms, they were in some of our office spaces, they were behind the auditorium, and so our programming paused because of that. Now, of course, for the first week or so, everything paused, but as things started getting more back to normal, we did not have programming in Herman Park Center for the duration that they were there. We moved some of the programming to W.A. Foster Center, some of the programming, because it was still somewhat mild outside, like line dance classes, exercise classes, we could have outside. And so that's what I foresee happening should we, hopefully not anytime soon, but be in another type of emergency situation. And because I think one of the last storms we had, FEMA, they came in, they were in what we're calling the recreation room. So if they need to come in and use the recreation room, then the programming that we currently have in the recreation room will be moved somewhere else or put on pause. And again, depending on the severity of the situation, we may not be doing any programming anyway.
Yeah, but I think, is it safe to say that our situation in terms of providing space, whether it be at the Parks Rec building on Herman Street or TC Coley, because we're not using the Herman Street location anymore, we'd be severely limited to what space we could provide any agency
Definitely.
in an emergency
Yes.
situation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the downtown parking discussion. Good evening, ma'am.
Mayor and council, I promise I have a very brief presentation, but before I do, I'd like to introduce our newest employee, maybe of the city, but definitely in our department. This is Greg Mills. Greg, you want to come on up? Greg is our new business and property development specialist after that position was vacant for about 9 months. So I, for one, am very happy to have him. Do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'm a North Carolina native. We lived here about a year and a half ago from Wayne County. Background in real estate, small business, corporate management. So extremely happy to be here. I look forward to working with all of you all.
I had the opportunity to meet you on the street out there as you were being shown around your first day, I believe. So welcome.
Busy couple weeks already. So
Welcome, sir.
He has jumped right in.
And thank you for choosing Goldsboro to live.
Thank you, Greg. I am here this evening to invite the public to participate in a downtown public parking forum at the Wayne County Museum this Thursday at 5:30. The museum is located at 116 North William Street, for those who don't know. Though this is technically a special meeting of the council due to the amount of interest for council members to participate, which is wonderful, by the way, The primary objective is really to listen and learn. There is no intent to make a decision based on feedback during the meeting, but simply to gather feedback from stakeholders regarding their needs and desires related to public parking. This meeting is open to the public and all are welcome to attend. Everyone is affected by downtown parking, not just business and property owners, tenants and employees, but anyone who parks downtown. If you are here this evening, you likely drove and are therefore a stakeholder in the conversation of public parking. Parking is not a new topic of discussion or challenge for that matter, nor is it a challenge with one clear solution. It is constantly changing and involves a long list of stakeholders with varying needs. For reference, a comprehensive traffic and parking study was conducted in 2016, which can be found on our website if anyone wants to read before they come on Thursday. It also included public input opportunities. The study cited sufficient capacity with over 1,900 public spaces, but outlined potential short and long-term management strategies, which have not been revisited since wayfinding signage was installed in 2020. Demand on available parking has grown with the addition of 80-plus upper story residential units downtown since 2016 and over 40 building renovations as well. This is very exciting growth for our downtown economy. However, it does put a strain on public parking. A great problem to have, but a consistent concern of downtown stakeholders nonetheless. The Public Parking Input Forum will be facilitated by a third-party professional with extensive experience in parking management for a fellow municipality. Dwight Bassett, who presented to the council during last year's retreat, so you may remember him, was recommended to us by the North Carolina Main Street and Rural Planning Director at North Carolina's Department of Commerce. Mr. Bassett was asked to facilitate in an effort to direct the conversation in a completely unbiased manner. Additionally, the location was selected as a neutral location to ensure that all feel welcome to join and participate. For maximum awareness, this meeting has been shared via the city's website, the monthly water bill, social media pages, as well as postcards that were hand-delivered and mailed to downtown stakeholders. For those who cannot physically make the meeting, it will also be aired on Facebook Live, and the facilitator's email will be shared for those who wish to provide feedback outside of the meeting. Our goal is truly to make sure that we gather as much input as possible and reduce barriers. There has already been sufficient and significant interest in this opportunity. All information, of course, will be gathered and brought back to City Council in order for you all to make an educated, citizen input-based decision should the need arise to make a decision based on parking management. Again, we believe that everyone is a downtown parking stakeholder, and stakeholder input is a key component in all policymaking. Do I have any questions?
Any questions? Okay, I encourage as many council members as can attend this. We're not running the meeting as was mentioned, but we certainly have an interest in it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, time allows us to go to the consent agenda, and Mr. Salmon, if you'll take us through that, please.
Yes, sir. We'll get Ms. Catherine Gwynn to come up, talk about the nonprofit funding policy. She put a lot of work into this. A lot of staff helped her with it, and hopefully council will agree to adopt it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, ma'am.
As you know, we've worked very hard over the past 3 or 4 years to try to put in some written procedures in place as we try to administrate city taxpayer dollars to help fund nonprofits which perform contracted services for the city. And in this process, I had developed a standard operating procedure. And one of the things that came up is, we had entities that were receiving city funds that were asking to have their audit waived. So the way state law works is it talks about a city may, if it chooses, provides funding of more than $1,000, may require, it's not a shall, but it may require an audit to be performed. And so the way that I interpret that law is that, I could require that these nonprofits that receive city funds, they have to provide an audit. But I will say audits are very expensive, even for the most simplistic business organizations, probably in the tune of about $5,000 for a very basic financial statement audit. So I set the limit not at 1,000, but at 5, because I felt like, you know, the city providing funding to a nonprofit, we should not be the only funding source for the nonprofit, right? So if they are receiving more than our 5,000 plus others, that, you know, they should have internal controls in place. They should have oversight to make sure that the funding is spent in accordance with what the their policy is and their directives. So, you know, the manager and I have talked about this, and I said, I don't feel comfortable saying, okay, well, we'll waive the audit because, you know, your organization has good policies and procedures in place and you just can't afford it, because I'm the one signing the check, right? So that doesn't make sense for the person that's the gatekeeper to also say you don't have to have an audit, right? So we've got to have kind of a triangulation of duties. And when I asked the manager about signing off on that, he wasn't comfortable with it because he felt like the council should really make that decision. So what I did was I took the SOP that I had written and I converted it to a policy because he wanted it to go before council. So basically, you're probably getting a little bit more detail than what you want to know about all the stuff that happens behind the scenes with this MPOs when we decide to budget and fund, and then how the process rolls out. But that's why it's a little bit more detailed probably than what you would per se see. I didn't want to have to rewrite the whole thing, to be honest with you, because it took a while to get all this together. So the essence of that policy is essentially, it talks about the beginning part, you know, how we go about doing the budget process, who in the organization is responsible for putting together the forms and putting the information out to the public so that they can apply to the city for funding. What happens after the council makes the decision about who is going to get funded, and then that process internally for staff about the paperwork and what's required and what's not required. So what's in there is generally what we have required since I came on board. I can't speak to what happened before I came to work here, but you know, we all have talked about that enough, I think, about all the paperwork that's required, because we know it's a lot. And then it talks about the execution once the contracts are signed by both the city and the nonprofit, and we start to execute. How do we get a check cut from the city to the nonprofit so that they can execute the program goals that they told us that they were going to do? So that's what this policy kind of encompasses, kind of cradle to grave, you know, front end to back end and that kind of thing. And the big driver behind it is, in order to give the manager the authority to waive the audit if an entity gets more than $5,000 of city money, he just needs the council's permission, and that's written in this policy. So that's kind of the gist of it. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to make any changes. If there are anything you feel like is missing, or we need to add another step, you know, just feel free to let me know.
Has council seen the policy and that was prepared? Okay. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, CDBG Public Services Policy, Felicia Williams.
Good evening again. CDBG Public Services. The city receives federal funds to administer CDBG and home programs to assist low to moderate income persons with housing and non-housing needs. Public services are an integral part of the comprehensive community development strategy and can address a range of individual needs and increase the impact of CDBG funds. Public services can strengthen communities by addressing the needs of specific populations and by supporting economic development. CDBG regulations allow the use of grant funds for a wide range of public service activities, including but not limited to child care, health care, job training, recreation programs, education programs, and many others. And staff is recommending by motion that council later adopt the CDBG Public Services Policy. I also present CDBG Rehabilitation Program Procedures Manual. Again,
hold on a second. Were any questions on the CDBG Public Services Policy that was just presented. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, CDBG Rehabilitation Program Procedures Manual. Purpose of the CDBG Rehabilitation Program is to foster and maintain affordable, decent, safe, and sanitary housing in the city. The program is available to eligible low to moderate income owner-occupied single residence homes within the city limits. Assistance to approved owner-occupied single-family homeowners will be provided in the form of a zero-interest deferred payment loan not to exceed a maximum of $30,000. The loan will have an affordability period of 5 years and will be forgiven at a rate of 20% per year. And again, staff is asking that council adopt the CDBG Rehabilitation Program Procedures Manual.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Next is approval of facility use lease for Balanced Choice Vending, LLC, at the Goldsboro Golf and Event Center. Obi Agbasi is going to present this.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm not here to ask for any money today.
We're here to give some.
You're getting expensive, though.
Well, I'm standing before you today to get you to approve the lease for Balance Vending at Goldsboro Golf Course. The city of Goldsboro was approached by Balance Vending to request a lease to lease the space and kitchen equipment at Goldsboro Golf Course. The space needed is located at Goldsboro Golf Course. The address is 1501 South Slocum. And the equipment is also listed on the contract that you probably already have or should have. If not, we can provide you with the contract. Balance Vending is a full-line vending company. Their goal is to serve the city and the community, to create jobs, summer paid jobs for youth, programs for youth. They have a history of it in Maryland from where they're from. Any additional ways to help the golf course generate revenue and the community. Balance Vending with the lease will be the use of the lease will be $600 a month plus 5% of their revenue.
Gross
Revenue for the month. We have put out a public notice. We put it out on December the 22nd. Yesterday was the 30-day. It was up, which is why I'm here. And we're recommending that council adopts the, approve the attached resolution and authorize the city manager to enter a lease into agreement with Balance Vending for the kitchen lease. I do have a representative from Balance Vending. If you have any questions, he'll be glad to answer any of your questions.
I have a question of you.
Sure.
The vendor, will they employ the labor there?
Yes.
So, and they will meet all of the required insurance and other.
They will.
requirements?
It's on the contract.
Okay. I've got the contract here.
Which has been gone.
Yeah.
Ron, he's gone over it, and Catherine has gone over it. It's been approved.
Okay.
So I think everything is in order. We just need to get them to start cooking.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
Will you use the present cooking facilities we have?
We will use that small kitchen that used to be. If you haven't been there of recent, I think Council Lady Matthews was there last week, 2 weeks ago, and we have actually moved the pro shop over. So we have the food and beverage area and the kitchen to themselves. That's that area they're going to be leasing.
Where the old pro shop was?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Okay, next, contract award for 2023 Public Safety Complex HVAC boiler replacement. Chief West?
Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Chief.
Item H is the contract award for the Public Safety Complex boiler replacement project. The Public Safety Complex boiler is original to the 1975 construction of the building. The casing on the boiler is rusted through and leaks when shut down. The boiler inspector has warned it'll be deemed unsafe if it leaks during operation. It was determined that replacement of the system is warranted before it fails. Funds were budgeted in the fiscal year 23 for the replacement of the boiler system. Bids were invited and due on Thursday, September 8th of 2022 at 2 p.m. for the replacement of the Public Safety Complex HVAC boiler system. 3 submittals were received and tabulated as follows. Hoffman Mechanical Solutions, $99,469.06. Dale Mechanical Incorporated, $170,500. And Piedmont Service Group, $170,771. Due to the rising cost of material and the time frame between receiving the bids and awarding the contract, there has been an increase in the contract price of $6,603.65. The purpose work consists of replacing the HVAC boiler and pump for the public safety complex, startup of the new boiler, and integration into the existing controls. It is recommended that the City Council adopt the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Hoffman Mechanical Solutions in the amount of $113,232.62, which includes bid price plus sale and use tax for the public safety complex boiler replacement project. Any questions?
Chief, was our procurement specialist involved in this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Chief, when you see 2 out of 3 bids come in within $200 of each other, and the third bid being almost half, that's always kind of been a red flag for me. Do you have any idea why they were able to come in so much lower?
Other than I think it was a different system that they bid out to us.
Okay.
The other 2 were, it was a different boiler, maybe a larger unit or whatever, and then it was determined that a different one is more suitable.
Okay. But similar specs, I mean, whoever you've had look at it believes that it's still adequate for your application?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Chief, I got a question on panhandling registration. What's the status there?
We've had 9 permits issued. No charges at this point. We're just kind of going through the educational phase to when we do come across people that are panhandling, we advise them that they need to get a permit. They've been very receptive and they'll come down and get a permit. But at this point, nobody's been charged and seem to be somewhat in compliance.
So how does the registration process, how's it initiated? Is this by a officer seeing someone panhandling and go up and ask?
It's either, yes, sir. It's either an officer will observe somebody panhandling, and if they've got time to get out and inquire, they will, or it's complaint generated. If we get a call from the public to respond to an individual panhandling, then that begins the process.
Okay. So you've actually registered 9, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I have item I. It's going to be the ratifying a lease agreement to use the Wayne County Law Enforcement Officers Association firearms range. The City of Goldsboro Police Department entered into an agreement with the Wayne County Law Enforcement Officers Association Incorporated and the County of Wayne to use the Wayne County Law Enforcement Officers Association firearms range on January 1st of 2021. The city has shared in this lease agreement since the late 1980s. The range is a little over 2.06 acres and is located at 440 Old Mount Olive Highway, Dudley, North Carolina. The Wayne County Law Enforcement Officers Association firing range serves a dual purpose for the sworn personnel of Goldsboro Police Department. The lease agreement allows sworn personnel to practice firearms training on designated open range schedules as well as requalify annually as mandated by North Carolina Department of Justice for all sworn personnel. The lease requires both participating agencies to work harmoniously with scheduled procedures, assigning designated range officers who are certified firearms instructors who will assist with coordinating the use of the range. Maintenance of the range will be the responsibility of the City of Goldsboro on odd number years and the County of Wayne on even number years. The lease holds both participating agencies responsible for maintaining their own insurance coverage for their law enforcement officers and agrees to indemnify and hold the Wayne County Law Enforcement Officers Association and the property of the association to include the premises free and harmless of all claims. The city and county will pay the sum of $3,500 annually from January 1st of 2021 until December 31st of 2026. It is recommended that council approve the attached resolution ratifying the authorization for the chief of police to have executed an agreement and approving the agreement with the Wayne County Law Enforcement Officers Association for the use of the firearms training for GPD sworn personnel. Any questions?
Any questions?
All right.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, item J, non-contiguous satellite annexation. Kenny.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
Even, sir.
It is nice to see Goldsboro is continuing to grow. We have several proceedings regarding annexation that I'll run through with you tonight. In particular, on the consent agenda, you'll see that we have one non-contiguous satellite annexation petition by Mr. Chad Post. This property is located at 2853 US Highway 70 West, located on the southwest corner of US Highway 70 West and NC 581. The applicant's requesting that non-contiguous property described by meets and bounds in item 2 of the attached petition be annexed to the city of Goldsboro. In your package, you'll have maps showing the property to be annexed. The City Council approved the change of zone request for the above property from Wayne Community Shopping to General Business Conditional Zoning District to allow for the operation of a convenience store and gas station on September 6, 2022. This property consists of 2.43 acres, and it's no secret, if you remember, we are going to see one of 2 Wawa convenience stores to be located at this particular location. Tonight, planning staff is requesting council to direct the city clerk to determine the sufficiency of the petition. If the petition is determined to be sufficient, a public hearing will be scheduled and a report will be prepared by the planning department in conjunction with other city departments for submission to the council. So, Mayor, that is item J, and I'll move on to item K.
Any
Yes, sir.
questions on item J?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Item K is for a contiguous annexation petition by Mr. J.D. Gupta. This property is going to be located on the south side of West New Hope Road between Somerville Lane and Twin Oaks Place. The applicant will be requesting that contiguous property described by meets and bounds in item 2 of the attached petition be annexed into the city of Goldsboro. Maps showing the property are enclosed in your packet. City Council approved the change of zone request for the above subject properties on June 6, 2022 from residential 16 to residential 12 conditional zoning, limiting the property to a 62 lot residential subdivision. Property consists of approximately 19.3 acres. And once again, tonight, planning staff is requesting council to direct its clerk to determine the sufficiency of the petition. If the petition is determined sufficient, a public hearing would be scheduled and a report will be prepared by the planning department in conjunction with other city departments for submission to the city council.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Advisory Board and Commission appointments, Laura?
There are several vacancies on advisory boards and commissions. The city council met during the work session on January the 9th to review vacancies and applications received to fill the current vacancies. With these appointments, 2 alternate positions on the Historic District Commission remain. It is recommended that council adopt the attached resolution appointing members to various boards and commissions in the city of Goldsboro.
Any questions on those 4 appointments? Okay.
And then last item N is department monthly reports.
Anyone have any questions on the department reports? If not, that's the list of consent agenda items. It's about, yes, sir.
Sir, would you like to do closed session for litigation while you have time?
Yep, we might as well. We got plenty of time here, so at this time I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of going into closed session, please signify by raising your hand. Ms. Jones? Ms. Jones?
Closed session, ma'am?
Oh,
Closed
yeah.
session?
Mhm.
Okay. All opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We're now going to closed session, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Is there a motion to come out of closed session and go back? Oh, we've done that already?
Just meeting adjourned or recessed.
Okay, we recess until 7 o'clock. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock on January 23rd, 2023. The Goldsboro City Council meeting is called to order. And at this time, I would invite Archbishop Slater to come forward and lead us in prayer and be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, men and women. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for your kindness and your mercy. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this great city, Lord. And Lord, we need you in this hour, Lord, for us to become better and even let your light shine even in this town. Father, help us, even as these who have been selected to speak for us. Give them knowledge, give them wisdom, give them clarity of thought. In the days to come, God, allow us to attract those that we need in this city. Father, we thank you, for as we get better, we'll give you the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sir. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mayor Ham.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Polak.
Present.
Councilwoman Jones. Present. Councilman Broadway.
Present.
Councilwoman Matthews.
Present.
Councilman Gaylor.
Present.
And again, Councilmember Bass is not with us this evening, so we do have a quorum and we'll move forward. Before we go to the first item of business, I want to advise the audience that we do have a public comment period, but I want to remind you of the policies that we've recently adopted. And that is, you need to be signed in with the clerk in order to speak. The clerk has a list on her desk or a sign-in sheet. You can come forward and sign in with the information that's asked. At the time of our public comment period, you'll be called up in accordance with the order in which you signed up. There'll be a 3-minute period to speak. The time will be shown on these monitors. It will change colors as you go from green to yellow and to red. At the 30-second period, 30 seconds remaining, which will be 2.5 minutes into your allotted time, you'll be given a little alert beep. And then at the end of your 30 seconds or your 3 minutes, you get 2 more beeps, and that's your notice that your time is expired. And so I appreciate your adherence to that. And again, if you want to speak, please come forward and sign in. Okay, let's move on with approval of minutes for the work session and regular meeting of January 9, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes and work session of that period?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes as stated, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. Minutes are approved. We have no presentation, so we'll go into public hearings, and we'll have the planning department come forward.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So tonight, our first item of discussion will be for a public hearing for a non-contiguous annexation request by J&J Daniels Farming Enterprises, LLC. This property is located on the east side of South 111 Highway, which is at the corner of South NC 111 Highway and Ditchbank Road. So if you'll follow along with me on our monitors here. Here's the subject property there. Again, you'll see Highway 111 South, to on your left side of the aerial, and Ditchbank Road running laterally across the aerial. This piece of property consists, of approximately 10.91 acres. Again, the owner is J&J Daniels Farming Enterprises, as well as the applicant for petitioning for annexation. Currently, the zoning for the property is residential R9. It was rezoned by City Council on July 11, 22 for development of a residential subdivision. The qualifications for non-contiguous or satellite annexation are that the nearest point of the proposed satellite corporate limits is not more than 3 miles from the primary corporate limits of Goldsboro, that no point on the proposed satellite corporate limits is closer to the primary corporate limits of another city than the primary corporate limits of Goldsboro, that the city will be able to provide the same services within the proposed satellite corporate limits that it provides within Goldsboro's corporate limits, with the exception of water services, and that the proposed area of annexation will not exceed 10% of the area within the primary corporate limits of the annexing city. So staff has found that the proposed non-contiguous annexation request does meet the requirements of North Carolina General Statutes 160A-58. With the exception of water services, the city will be able to provide the same city services within the proposed satellite corporate limits. City water services are not available, however, they will be provided by Eastern Wayne Sanitary Water District. Staff recommends approval of the non-contiguous annexation request. At this time, the council may ask planning staff of any questions, after which the applicant or any other citizen may speak, at which time afterwards a vote can be held by City Council to vote on a motion to adopt the recommendation for approval and vote to adopt the non-contiguous annexation ordinance, or council shall vote to make a motion to deny the non-contiguous annexation request and adopt the ordinance to deny. Lastly, council also has the option to continue this public hearing to a date certain. I wanted to bring to your attention, in your packets, originally you had an ordinance that had a couple of incorrect dates. I wanted to bring forth to you. You should now, I believe, have the correct ordinance and the correct dates on that, which will reflect today's date and the effective date of the ordinance being January 23rd. If you have any questions, let me know. Mayor, outside of that, I'll turn it back over to you for the public hearing and final council action, unless you have any questions.
Are there any questions of the planning director? If not, I'll open it up to the public. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the matter that you heard, please come forward. State your name, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, my name is Steve Oliverio. I'm with Bartlett Engineering out of Wilson, 1906 Nash Street in Wilson. Here with the developer's representative, Mr. Paul Quinn. We're basically here to answer any questions you may have. This is kind of a cleanup proposal to get this entire parcel annexed. The major portion of this parcel was annexed years ago with a proposed development that never came to fruition. So we've come now with a rezoning, and we have a preliminary plat in process for an 84 lot subdivision. So we're just trying to clean up the parcel and get it all annexed into the city. And be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions? Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this matter, please come forward. I see no one coming forward, so I'll close the public hearing on the non-contiguous annexation request. Is there a motion to adopt an ordinance annexing J&J Daniels Farming Enterprises, or is there a motion to deny it?
Motion to adopt.
Motion is made to adopt it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to second, to adopt it and second. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those voting to approve the adoption, excuse me, the annexation request, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion passes. Okay.
Steve, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. Next, we will move on to our next public hearing, which involves the closing of 2 streets, Dakota Avenue and East 5th Street. vacancy. So the location again is Dakota Avenue. This is street section from East 4th Street to East 5th Street. And also the closing of East 5th Street from Humphrey Street to Dakota Avenue. Petitioner is the County of Wayne. Current zoning for the property is office and institutional. 2. We sent this petition to several city departments for comments. There were no objections to the proposed street closing by fire, police, engineering, and public works. The city engineer has indicated that a proposed utility easement be reserved at Dakota Avenue and 5th Street for an existing 6-inch water line and an existing 8-inch sewer line if the public right-of-way is closed. The County of Wayne has agreed to provide a survey of the property identifying the location of all utilities and the easements proposed as reserved by the city of Goldsboro. As you recall, this property is just south of the primary property there where the county owns quite a bit of property where you see the adoption center, the 911 communication center, and where they're proposing to house their county offices for the new Department of Health and Social Services and a number of other county-owned facilities in the future. So staff's evaluation and recommendation, staff finds that the proposed street closure request is compliant with North Carolina General Statutes 168-299 and is recommending approval of the street closing request. At this point in time, Mayor, the council may ask planning staff if any questions. Applicant and any other citizen may speak. Council will make a motion to either adopt the staff recommendation for approval and to vote to adopt the ordinance officially closing Dakota Avenue and East 5th Street, or the council shall vote to make a motion to deny the staff recommendation for approval and vote to deny the ordinance officially closing Dakota Avenue and East 5th Street. As a condition of the closing the streets referenced above, the city of Goldsboro would reserve utility easements over Dakota Avenue and East 5th Street for an existing 6-inch water line and an existing 8-inch sewer line. Council also has the option to continue the public hearing to a date certain. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you and council for any questions you might have.
Any questions to the planning director for this parcel? I see none, so thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Again, this is a public hearing on the matter of street closing of Dakota Avenue. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak? I see no one coming, so I'll close the public hearing. You've heard the presentation. Is there a motion to adopt an ordinance officially closing Dakota Avenue and East 5th Street as stated in the presentation, or to deny it? Do we have a motion to approve or deny?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all voting in favor of this, please signify by raising your hand. Motion is carried. Okay, this time we'll move to public comment period.
I'm just waiting for the timer to come up. There you go. Rovarian Taylor.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Can everybody hear me well?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to start off by saying good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I hope all is well. I prepared something for you all. I am here to present a progress report concerning Ashford's Boxing Club Study Hall Initiative. We have made a joint venture with Rebuilding Broken Places and have donated 4 computers to our study hall initiative. We are currently renovating the space pertaining to the drywall, paint, and carpet. and I am now here to request that the current work order for the electrical sockets be expedited to maximize the potential impact. Now let's talk numbers. So the desperate need for this program in this community, Goldsboro High School is in the bottom 50% for the overall testing in North Carolina. All right. According to the Public School Review, National Center of Education Statistics, as well as the North Carolina Department of Education, only 15 to 19% of students are proficient in math. Only 20 to 24% of students are proficient in reading and language arts. So that right there provides a need for our program, the Study Hall Initiative. So I also have an example of one of the students that I'm working with within the community who attends Wayne Preparatory Academy, the elementary school. So when I met the young child, he had some money in his pocket. I asked him to count the money for me. He had 10 quarters and a $1 bill. He handed me the $1 bill and told me this was $5. He told me a $1 bill was $5. I said, no, that's not $5, that's a $1 bill. He had 10 quarters. I said, how many do you have? He said, I don't know. I pulled a quarter from him and I said, how much is this? He said, I don't know. I said, this is a quarter, which is worth 25 cents. I grabbed another quarter and I asked him, so how much is 25 plus 25? He told me 40. Right, so then in that moment, the next day, I went to Walmart, got one of the little reading books, that the kids work in. So I've been working with that child for the past month. This dates back to when I came to the last city council meeting in December. And his mother showed me a picture of him receiving an award at school stating that he is the most improved in math. So our program is working and we can have a bigger impact on the children in this city. We just need the support and the help from the community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Good, thank you.
That's excellent.
Who should he contact about the work order being expedited? Is that possible? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're talking about TC Coley Center, there's a work order in work to provide electrical for your computers and such. Okay, I'll work with Felicia Brown on that and we'll look at it.
So just follow up.
Follow up with Alicia Brown. Copy.
And I just,
Parks and Rec.
take a seat, man. I just want to commend you guys for the fundraisers y'all done. And also, like I said, Rebuilding Broken Places for the donation of computers. That was one of the components that we looked at was education as far as athleticism. So I appreciate and on the record, for the record, I just want to state that some of my statistics were wrong as far as concussion. I was just speaking out of emotion and not fact. So I just wanted to go on the record for saying that as well. But I do appreciate you guys, what I've seen, and I'll be more visible. That's in my district in the future. Support you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Excellent. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I don't know you, but I'm proud of you.
All right, thank you.
Our second speaker is April Rojas.
Good evening, ma'am.
Council members.
Good evening.
And I'm a Goldsboro High School graduate, so I commend you on what you're doing. I live on Walnut Street. Councilman Pollock hears from me monthly. And when I got home today, I got the Citizen newsletter, which, first of all, it's backdated, talks about Martin Luther King Jr. Day, but yet it wasn't written until the 19th. We do have a problem with our grass and yard debris being picked up, but yet they can sweep our street, but yet they can't come pick this up. I did see where you had put something, Mayor, about we don't have but 2 working trucks. This is not a thing that's all of a sudden happened. This has been a constant thing. The last thing that we were told when my husband called was that we don't pay for this. We do pay for this. We pay for tax dollars that gets this done. There is a $4.50 storm water service charge where they clean up the storm water. Is that not what it's for? To make sure everything stays clean and nothing's overloaded, but yet they want us to pick stuff up and blow debris back from the drains and the gutters and put them in our yard. I sit on the planning commission. I give my time. I don't mind contributing, but this is an ongoing problem. The fact that we're paying this and they're saying we don't pay for this, but we do. And, you know, we pay monthly and they can't seem to pick up our stuff. It's back, 4 weeks behind, it's not what it is. It's at least 8 to 9. And the fact that people are leaving the city in groves to go work in other cities, that needs to be addressed as well. Because when a big storm comes and we have the flooding we have, especially where I live, and I live on a slope, and it has to go down the street before it floods to my house. Now, when it floods that bad that it's to my sidewalk and up to my house, then it causes flooding under my house, which is not a city problem, that's a me problem. And I can't get flood insurance because I'm not in a flood zone. But simply getting this stuff picked up would fix these concerns. So I just want to make sure that I was known, because when I got home today and I opened it, and this is what I talk to him monthly about, monthly. And then I call and they're like, oh, you don't pay for it. No, we pay for this. It's plain as day on my bill that I pay for this. I pay for my refuse. I pay on time. I pay early. Least y'all can do is get them to pick up the stuff. Thank you.
So I have a comment. I'm concerned about this statement that you don't pay for it.
That's what we've been told.
And we need to, do you know who you spoke to?
The lady who answers the phone with Rick.
Yeah, Mr. Fletcher.
Yes, I've met with him several times. I've went to his office because I have been sent around to his assistants, and one of them was extremely rude on the phone to the point that I took off work to go to the storm and sewer. And I actually called him, and he was at work, and I took off work to go and address this concern. And I was told, oh, you don't pay for this. This is something the city does for you. No, $4.50 when it was adopted in was to keep the stuff clean so it didn't flood. But we can't get anyone to come pick it up. And when I call and complain, they know my name, they know my address. They'll come pick it up right then or within the day, or I'll have someone fuss at me on the phone and say, oh, we just got it. I pay for it frequently, and I pay my bill on time, if not early. So the fact that I'm being told, you don't pay for this, and the rates are continuing to rise, and I have a $119 water bill, $119. And there's 4 people in my home. It breaks down, my water's not changed, it's $22. Service cost is $17.11. Okay, sewer is $49. Stormwater, $4.50. Refuse, $25. Recycled, $1.
Okay, thank you. That's it?
That's it? Yes, sir.
Well, I'll close the public comment period, and we'll move to the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. Consent agenda items D through M are presented for council approval.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda's items D through M?
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
And my apologies for not asking it earlier. I was rereading the nonprofit policy. A couple months ago, Councilmember Gaylor, we was trying to decipher how we were going to handle this workers' compensation thing, and we came up with a pretty good plan. But that plan, is it going to be something that we do moving forward? If so, I think it should be written into that verbiage, because it could be a little bit discouraging to those nonprofits who see that they have to have the workers' comp, but they don't know of a feasible option to get it done, or the cities being willing to work with those nonprofits in that regard. I think it was on page maybe 54 in the agenda packet that I was looking at, and I just didn't know if that could be written into the verbiage so it does not discourage nonprofits.
So you approved that, I think it was a $350 stipend, was that correct? For this year.
Right.
Right, because people did not understand the requirement, supposedly. So are you trying to obligate that money for the future? I'm not sure we want to do that.
Oh, I didn't think we obligated that because people did not understand. I thought we obligated that as a help because our policy was not clearly written to begin with. So maybe I misunderstood.
Okay,
and I think that if we did it this time, that's why I'm asking, is that something that we want to sustain moving forward? And if so, should we put that into the policy? I guess that was my question.
And to your point, I appreciate your the compliment on the idea. My point bringing it up at that time was the policy wasn't clear. We agree on that, and that folks were being handed a requirement that they quite reasonably could have not understood to have been there when they originally applied and were originally awarded their money, or originally were asking for a specific amount of money. And so my approach then was, this 1 year, let's do this, let's try to, almost in a hold harmless sort of way, let's try to get them across the hump this 1 year. I think that if it's very clear, I echo your sentiments. I want to make sure that folks are able to put these funds towards the actual mission of their organization. But I think that if the policy is clear that this is something that's expected of you right up front, then I think it becomes more a question for us during our budgeting process for how much money do we put into the pot, so then we can allocate them whatever amount, with an additional $300 in their total allocation, so then they can pay for it. So I think that can probably be resolved outside of this policy, more at a budget side of the conversation.
So is it clearly in the revised policy that was spoken about before when our finance
Yes, but
director-
no stipend for the workman's
Right,
comp.
no stipend, but it is a
Yes, sir.
requirement for the workers' comp.
It is.
Is there any other discussion on this item?
So now we need to
So
vote.
we had a
The-
motion to approve, and it was second.
Mayor Ham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polak?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones?
No.
Councilman Broadway?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matthews?
No.
Councilman Gaylor?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion is approved by majority vote. We have no items requiring individual action, and Mr. Simon, manager report.
Yes, sir. So I would like to congratulate the Housing Authority, City of Goldsboro, for receiving the HUD Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant of $500,000 to transform the West Haven apartments into high-quality, mixed-income housing. The city staff are excited to work with the Housing Authority and our other teammates on this to obtain the $50 million grant that would make that happen. Just wanted everybody to realize that. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
We have some ceremonial documents, and I'm going to start out. I don't believe Mr. Dawson is here, is he? So I'm going to read a resolution expressing appreciation for services rendered by Melvin Dawson as an employee for the city of Goldsboro for more than 20 years. Whereas Melvin Dawson retires on February 1, 2023 as a traffic signal technician 2 and more than 20 years of service with the engineering department. And whereas Melvin began his career on December 4, 2002 as a building and traffic maintenance worker with the Public Works Department. And whereas on May 12, 2004, Melvin was promoted to radio signal technician with the Public Works Department. And whereas on April 25, 2007, Melvin was promoted to senior building and traffic maintenance with the Public Works Department. And whereas on February 3, 2010, Melvin was transferred to signal system maintenance technician with the Public Works Department. And whereas on July 9, 2014, Melvin was transferred to the engineering department. And whereas on February 23, 2022, Melvin was reclassified as traffic signal technician 2 with the engineering department, where he has served until his retirement. And whereas Melvin has proven himself to be a dedicated and efficient public servant who has gained the admiration and respect of his fellow workers and the citizens of the city of Goldsboro, and whereas the mayor and city council of the city of Goldsboro are desirous on behalf of themselves, city employees, and the citizens of the city of Goldsboro of expressing to Melvin Dawson their deep appreciation and gratitude for the service rendered by him to the city over the years. Now therefore, be it resolved by the mayor and city council of the city of Goldsboro, North Carolina, that we express to Melvin Dawson our very best wishes for success, happiness, prosperity, and good health in his future endeavors. This resolution shall be incorporated into the official minutes of the city of Goldsboro and shall be in full force and effect from and after this 23rd day of January 2023. So congratulate and wish best wishes to Mr. Dawson for his service to the city. We also have a couple of proclamations, and I'm going to ask our Mayor Pro Tem Pollock to read the American Heart Month proclamation. I'm sorry.
Before we proceed.
Oh, excuse me.
A vote on the retirement resolution.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you heard the resolution. Do I have a motion to approve or to adopt, to adopt the resolution for Melvin Dawson?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting, please signify by raising your hand. Ms. Jones?
Beg your pardon?
You adopting, you voted
Yes.
to adopt?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Motion's carried. Okay,
I
Mayor Pro Tem?
apologize, I did not hear it.
Okay, American Heart Month proclamation. Whereas heart disease continues to be the leading cause of death in the United States, affecting men and women from all walks of life. And whereas the risk factors of heart disease are smoking, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, overweight, obesity, physical inactivity, diabetes, a family history of early heart disease, and age. And whereas individuals can promote their own health and prevent disease and illness by taking steps to prevent and control the heart disease risk factors. And whereas every year, the month of February is designated American Heart Month by the American Heart Association, and is a time for Goldsboro citizens to raise their awareness about heart disease and strive to increase physical activity and make heart healthy choices part of daily life, help reduce their risk for heart disease. And whereas Goldsboro citizens need to take action to make heart health a priority for themselves and their families, become aware of their heart disease risk, and take action to control their risk. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Goldsboro City Council does hereby proclaim the month of February 2023 as American Heart Month in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and call upon the people of Goldsboro to increase their awareness and understanding of heart disease and to observe this month with appropriate activities and programs. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal, City of Goldsboro, North Carolina, this 23rd day of January 2023.
Thank you, sir. The next proclamation is the Year of the Trail proclamation to be read by Councilman Broadway.
Year of the Trail proclamation. Whereas the city of Goldsboro's natural beauty is critical to its residents' quality of life, health, and economic well-being, and whereas the trails that span across our community are an integral part of the recreation and transportation possibilities of our area and promote an enjoyment of scenic beauty by our residents and our visitors, and whereas the parks, greenways, trails, and natural areas in our community are welcoming to all, provide a common ground for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds to access our rich and diverse natural, cultural, and historic resources. And whereas the city of Goldsboro's natural assets and resources are integral to disaster recovery and resiliency to climate change for future generations, and whereas there are more than 10 miles of trails and greenways available in Goldsboro, including natural trails to our expansive paved greenways or hiking and mountain biking trails, and whereas trails offer quality of life benefits to all as expressions of local community character and pride, as outdoor workshops for science education and tools for economic revitalization, as free resources for healthy recreation, as accessible alternative transportation, and as sites for social and cultural events. And whereas the North Carolina General Assembly designated 2023 as the Year of the Trail in North Carolina to promote and celebrate the state's extensive network of trails that showcase our state's beauty, vibrancy, and culture, and whereas North Carolina is known as a great trail state. Therefore be it resolved that the Goldsboro City Council does hereby proclaim 2023 as the Year of the Trail in collaboration with the members of the Great Trails State Coalition. In witness thereof, I hereby set my hand and fix the seal of the city of Goldsboro. this 23rd day of January. David Ham, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. So this time I'll ask the council members for any closing comments they would like. I'll start with Councilman Gaylor.
Thank you, Mayor. The Downtown Development Office, just want to say thank you to you for your work pulling together this parking meeting on Thursday. It's my understanding that that did not begin as a council initiative. That did not begin as us calling a council meeting. That the amount of interest that the council has in the general public in seeing this resulted in the law requiring us to have it be listed as a special call meeting. And I think that speaks very well to the amount of interest and the importance of our MSD, of our downtown, and of the economic development and of the economic impact that it has on our city. Changing gears, I would remind everyone that we only have one meeting in February and March, but we do have our board retreat. A number of folks in the district have reached out to ask about the agenda for the board retreat and ask if there were specific things that could be put on there. Anyone else that has anything, it's just a simple thing. Please shoot me an email so that I know, and then it's something that we can discuss as a council or with Mayor Ham to see if it's something that can fit on the agenda. I know it's going to be a very busy group, or a very busy couple of days, and that's February 22nd and 23rd, as it's already been published. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Matthews.
I do want to kind of make one correction about what was said, and it was because I hear a lot of different feedback from different things that we do at the city. The mayor made it very clear in an email or in the city manager's does a weekly report, and a report came out back in October, November, that there was some talk about a parking discussion and having a meeting. I then reached out to the mayor and asked if it would not be a special called meeting, because I was under the assumption that the mayor thought that this was very, very necessary to discuss. So conversations went on. I sent the mayor email asking that this not be a city council or even a mayor-led initiative due to a conflict of interest, bias, and all of the things above. The mayor then responded to me and let me know that this was an issue that needed to be, let me back up a little bit. So I told him that several issues come before the city council. We have presentations we had 3 tonight. They come before the board, and then we are responsible for making a decision if necessary. And I didn't think it was appropriate for us to participate in that regard. I think we have several downtown entities who are more than capable of leading the charge and coming up with a plan and presenting it to council like they have done so many other times. The mayor then told me that this meeting deserved some special considerations. So when we use those type of terminologies, you have another group of people who do not feel included in that plan. And those are oftentimes the people that I serve. So when I'm asking these questions, it's not just Brandy asking the question, I'm asking those questions for those persons that I represent. And as much as we have tried to do this, everybody is affected by X, Y, and Z, this did not come about because everybody was affected. This is not how this thing started. And I just wanted to clarify that, because the mayor was very clear, even before it went to council, that he was going to have a meeting about the parking downtown. So my only concern is that we too take very special interest to all the other issues that are going on in our city that affect other people than certain groups of people. I just want us to be fair. That was what the context of my email was to the council members, some of which have still not responded to that email. So I just want to be very clear and transparent that when we're doing stuff, I don't care how you fix it up, how you try to clarify it, the facts are the facts. And it was very disappointing that this now is being blanket covered, the fact that it's interest, and we have to fall in line with special meeting law and regulations. We all know that. If there's more than 4 of us in one place in that type of setting, we have to call a special meeting. But this was going to be a special meeting whether we were all there or not, and that is the thing that concerns me, and that is what I want to be clear. I don't care how our city staff, the mayor, other council members try to clear it up. And I plan to attend on Thursday because I go downtown all the time, and Aaron made a good point. It is a good problem to have. But I want to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of not just the city, not just specific or 2 or 3 business owners who want special accommodations. I want to ensure that we're doing the right thing for everybody, if in fact everybody are stakeholders, if in fact everybody's affected by this issue. So I'm holding the board accountable to say there was a lot of passion from our mayor about this parking. He was very passionate, very adamant about it in the email that he sent to me, and the special consideration that this issue needed. So I am hoping that we have special consideration for all the other issues that are needed. And I just wanted to clarify that we don't need to hide it and say that it's just because we're gonna all be there that's why we have to do it. That's not it. That's not the truth. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Paul.
Yeah, I just want to thank the Goldsboro Fire Department for their continued assistance and support of the Wayne County Public School System, Public Safety / Fire Technology class house at Goldsboro High School, where I'm an instructor. The coordination they've had with my curriculum as well as their own training means so much, especially with the shortfalls that they currently face with their own equipment. Also want to thank, in closing, the citizens within our city limits that do so much behind the scenes, that don't seek glory, but are definitely an asset to our city's growth and unity. That's all I have.
Councilman Broadway.
I have one thing, and I too have received numbers of calls about people picking up yard waste, especially leaves. But I've also known that our Public Works Department is working with very few pieces of equipment right now. In fact, I talked to the Public Utilities Director, and they now have 3 and maybe 4 trucks. So they're going to get on this problem. A lot of us don't have our leaves picked up, and a lot of people are concerned. But we can't take it out on the employees. They're working extra long hours to do it. And so those guys are out there working. It's up to us to get them the equipment to work with. And that's the point I want to make. And I do know we have a new truck ordered and maybe a new one on the way. But those guys out there working, they're working as hard as they can. So yell at us. Don't yell at those guys. That's all I have.
Ms. Jones.
Yes, I would like to say I had an opportunity to attend the Eastern Carolina Council Legislative Breakfast this morning. It was very, very informative. I was glad to see and meet a lot of the legislators, and we spoke of, municipality issues and sewer and all types of things. So I just wanted to say that that was very informative. The other thing is I really want to put a shout out to St. James for the suicide awareness workshop that occurred. It was really good. There was some great discussion. There could have been more people there. There were about 25. And there was some really, really good discussion. And we're going to do some more things along that line. And I want to thank those people and the speaker for coming out. And another issue of mine is trafficking, human trafficking. And tomorrow night there will be a workshop at Dillard Academy addressing human trafficking. And I want everybody to know and to please come out.
What
that
time?
Is at 6:30. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I'll amplify or speak to the issue that Councilman Broadway spoke to about our Public Works Department. As stated in the newsletter that went out with the utility bills, we've had some major problems in that department so far as leaf vacuum equipment goes. A leaf collecting machine has 2 motors on it, one for the engine that pulls the vacuum and then one for the vacuum itself. And we've had a continuous problem with equipment breaking down. The supply chain to replace those parts we're caught up in that, just like other merchants and other industries are caught up in supply chain shortages. So we've been at the mercy of things that were out of our control. Now, as Councilman Broadway mentioned, we're getting better. But you know, when you order a piece of equipment in June and you can't get it until 9 months later, that speaks to the supply chain. That doesn't mean that we don't have responsibility to pick up leaves and limbs. We do, and they're doing it in a very manner that is causing them to work overtime and so forth. I will also say that if you have limbs mixed with leaves, they will not pick those up. You have to separate limbs from the leaves. I had a lady stop me in a store one day and talk to me about it. I went by her house, a big pile of limbs were piled up on her leaves. And I called her back and said, you have to separate those limbs. Limbs will get caught up in the vacuum system of those leaf collectors and damage it, so they just will drive right on by it if they see limbs piled on there. So I just want you to be aware of that. And so far as any conversation that Public Works told you, ma'am, that you don't pay for this, then that was wrong, and our manager, our assistant manager is going to look into that matter. I have nothing. If there's nothing else from the council, the meeting's adjourned.